Welcome, dear audience, to This Week in Clown World, the video series dedicated to reliving the events of the simulation because yes, it really happened and no, we weren't dreaming. Well, I was hoping this week would be the one where everything calms down a little bit and we could just all laugh at Trump calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas in front of the entire world. But sadly, once again, the level of seething soy hatred from perpetual whingers got in the way of a good time, so here we are. Therefore, like always, we'll start in the Socialist Kingdom because it is just a never-ending clown show here. Now, last week we all got to witness the utter goonery of trying to get a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. It was quite the television, and the resulting fallout of the Orange Man putting everyone on blast for not wanting to resolve the war once and for all saw the man they call Zelensky head straight to the Soviet Kingdom, panhandling because for unknown reasons the failed state still thinks that they're a major player in the world of geopolitics. Yes, they most definitely can stand up against Russia and defend Ukraine's border with absolutely no money and a failing army, and even the nukes don't work. Yeah, not bloody likely, mate. I mean, just last year the Conservative Party were celebrating that the UK was ranked as #1 for global soft power. Like that means something. It really doesn't. It's the exact equivalent of that time when Kamala Harris told the Guacamodians not to come to the USA.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come. And then a million Guacamodians came anyway. It means nothing. Soft power is about as intimidating as an army of French people with baguette swords. So with Keir Stalin robbing Zelensky's red rocket, he committed to further defending Ukraine's border with cold hard cash and troops to enforce any resulting peace deal. While at the same time the Socialist Kingdom's own borders are wide open to anyone who wants to come here in a dinghy. Yeah, they'll all get a nice hotel room and hot dinners while the rest of us can go off and fucking die. Great one, Stalin. Your commitment to everybody else but the English is certainly making use of our tax money. It's not like we're in a deep GDP per capita recession or anything. And then came the rest of Europe's leaders to also red rocket Zelensky, promising even more money in exchange for more dead Ukrainians because Orange Man bad. Yeah, that one backfired because the Orange Man ain't having it. But we're going to pause right there as news has just broke across the Atlantic and the repercussions are devastating. Yes, JD Vance, the Vice President of the Freedom Eagles, the man who told Europe to their faces that they're a bunch of authoritarian clown commies, just sat down for an interview and once again directly attacked the UK, causing the biggest meltdown in the history of melting down and sparking an international incident. Although he really didn't. Now, you're probably wondering, what in the utter clown world am I on about? Well, Vance went on a Sean Hannity interview and said pretty much in response to questions on peacekeeping in Ukraine once the war is over, do we really expect some random country to send 20,000 troops to Ukraine who haven't fought a war in 40 years and defend their borders against Russia? Which was hate speech. So the UK media, who are no different from CNN with the constant sensationalism and straight up lying, ran the headline that Vance viciously insulted the UK and he also has really big dumb brain because the UK has fought alongside the US in many years. He is the biggest meanie to ever meanie in the history of meaning. And across the Socialist Kingdom, the people raged and melted down like the good little controlled sock puppets they are. Yeah, once again, the dumbasses of this country fell hook, line and sinker to yet another media propaganda outrage campaign designed to influence political opinion and drive up media clicks so they can collect all that advertisement revenue. Vance never said the UK, and he merely stayed entirely in the realm of hypothetical because it's true that most of Europe haven't fought a war in fucking decades. All that's happened is people made up what he said in their heads because the media told them to and are now rage wanking across the internet. No wonder these toilet brains keep voting in parties that actively hate them. Maybe one day they'll have the paradigm shift that they're being propagandized and lied to constantly. But it won't be today. Like just the other day when the Labour Party out of nowhere suddenly started reeing that Nigel Farage was fawning over Putin. Then the obedient masses immediately fell into line, all repeating the exact same thing, not realising the only reason Labour said it is because they're shitting themselves over the reform's popularity. So with this big fallout on all the European leaders giving Zelensky a red rocket now promising more money that none of us have, Trump ramped up the pressure by holding back arms to Ukraine because they're not serious about peace even though Ukrainians are dying. And and also being kidnapped off the streets to go to the front line, suddenly everyone falls straight into order and now they're ready for peace talks. Good. This whole situation is the dumbest political dogshit I have ever seen. And all those goons out there calling for more war and bombs aren't the ones on the front lines. But as this war is looking close to get to a solution that could have been negotiated at any point over the last 3 years, but it took a literal orange with a spray tan to strong arm everybody, the Soviet Kingdom decided this would be the week to finally prove that all those far-right extremists were entirely right. Now, last year, pretty much everyone is aware that a small quiet Christian boy from Wales who didn't do nothing, but also had Al-Qaeda training manuals and rice in, went to a Taylor Swift dance class for children and committed horrific acts that should see him swinging from a rope. So the people, sick to the back teeth this shit keep happening because the government purposely imported it, took to the streets protesting and in some cases full-on rioting. Now I ain't gonna defend the rioters who attempted to burn down a hotel housing the boat people, because not only was that counterproductive, it also could have murdered people. But suddenly those who just protested or filmed the riots were strangely subjected to extreme harsh legal ramifications. Yes, the setup of 24-hour courts to shove every one of them into jail regardless of the crime or non-crime, with long sentences while at the same time letting real criminals out to make space for them. Alright, that's going pretty authoritarian, right? Well, only for one certain section of society. Because just months before the events of Southport, the social services in Leeds had to remove children from a shit family that we imported here for some reason, even though they provide zero economic or cultural benefit. And the mere act of the UK government trying to protect children caused a mass riot of the imported clientele. Yeah, only 5 people got convicted here for burning a bus. There were no 24-hour courts in sight, and all those who recorded it and gestured at police all got to smell the sweet air of freedom. Ooh, and then the children that the government had to take away for being in this unsafe environment got returned to the family. Well done. And even further to that, during the Southport riots where the British people were furious at government failings resulting in children being ended, at the same time there are a whole bucket load of Islamic men carrying open weapons and furiously beating white men outside of a pub, and instead of sending them down for 25 days to life, like they did to the British, they were asked very politely to not be naughty boys and go put all their weapons back in their mosque. And then people started to notice something here. Why are one group of people subject to a certain type of rule when others are not? But it still didn't end there, as people started to remember. During those BLM riots, over something that happened in an entirely different country, all our police did while bicycles were being thrown at them was kneel down and gobble the chode of a Maoist struggle session. And when people committed acts of vandalism, and they're fully guilty of the crime, they got away from the sweet smell of justice. Or when we had the Just Stop Oil protests, where those poor little morons were blocking the road in the name of the environment, and then all the police did was stand there because they weren't allowed to touch them. But on the other side, when there was the anti-lockdown protests, or a day of celebrating being British, we had to wear helmets because the police came to crack some fucking skulls. And once all the evidence was brought into one, a new term became reality: two-tier policing. No, this can't be, cries all the gaslighters. The Lady of Justice is blind even if you can name bucket loads of examples. Well, they can all now shut the fuck up because we finally have the evidence that all the deniers can no longer deny. And it's not even evidence, it's literally the government telling us that they're doing it. Yes, the sentencing guidelines that influence jail time for offenders and sets out the considerations that should be taken into account, like, you know, whether or not you're a woman, because that really matters when you commit crime, or you're just young and dumb so you can use that as an excuse for your actions. And then there's primary care of dependents, because you really considered that when you committed the crime. Or how's about you're an ethnic minority who's been a very, very naughty boy, but because of the color of your skin, you are obviously the victim here and not the perpetrator. Therefore, you should have special considerations during sentencing. Wait, What? Yeah, somehow having melanin in your skin is a consideration when sentencing now, and not the crime that you actually committed. Therefore proving that we do indeed live in a two-tier society where being worn for white and indigenous is a hate crime. And the worst part about it is the Justice Secretary tried saying that this isn't an example of two-tier justice. But it fucking is! It's written right there. In fact, everything here is entirely two-tier justice. Take, for example, the couple who straight up murdered a little girl. And you'll be thinking, right, well, they both deserve to be on the long end of a rope and good fucking riddance. But somehow, the guy gets life, but the woman gets 10 years for murdering a child. Get the fuck out of here! While at the same time, the king and Keir Stalin are bowing down to Islam and sending their messages of love and goodwill across Ramadan, but say absolutely nothing about Christianity like Ash Wednesday and Lent and all that sort of stuff. Not even religious myself, but damn man, there is no other explanation for this other than they hate their own country. What you giving up for Lent this year, Stalin? Tampons? Although there is an internet rumor going around right now that King Charlie Boy has converted to Islam, but he just hasn't come out of it yet because he's the head of the Church of England. And just to really drive down the point that the Socialist Kingdom is a two-tier shithole of a country, we are indeed bringing in blasphemy laws through the back door to serve the imported clientele. Recently, a man burnt the Quran outside the Turkish embassy, which should be allowed even if you disagree with it because freedom. But instead of just going, alright mate, don't really agree with you burning people's religious texts no matter what religion it is, but it is your God-given right to do it, a man turned up and tried Londoning him to death, so they both got arrested. One for grievous bodily harm, which somehow is an attempted murder, and also the guy who did the burning for religiously aggravated public order offense, which is literally a blasphemy law. And the real kicker is the guy who tried to stab him got bail, whereas the victim was remanded in custody. What? Oh, and also, how could I not forget? Recently, Keir Stalin refused to ban cousin marriages because the imported clientele demand the practice goes on. Now, I'm not saying we're going full Alabama here, but we're going full Alabama. But this time with crescent moons, and instead of saying yeehaw, we're all shouting Allen snack bars. Alright then, let's sack off Europe and head over to the Freedom Eagles where that orange man has yet again had an entire week of winning and the meltdown continues. So with the threat of peace now on the table and Trump taking no prisoners, even threatening Russia directly with worser sanction than ever before because they started to bomb the shite out of Ukraine, which is total cunt behavior. And everyone in the world knows that these will be far greater than whatever the Biden administration put on him because Trump isn't a pussy. So we decided, you know what, it is time we held the State of the Union address to dunk on all the haters. And my god, he did. Now for all those who haven't watched it, or even if you did, there were some very interesting parts of the State of the Union. The first being it was 2 hours long, and for a guy who is 78 years old, damn boy, what's in those freedom cornflakes you eating? The second was once again the Democrats think that they are on the right side of history when they are clearly not, and everyone is waking up to that fact. You know, like perpetually whinging that fully grown men with hairy balls should be in women's changing rooms, and Al Green deciding to heckle the entire time like a man-child, shouting that the orange man doesn't have a mandate. He fucking does have a mandate, mate. It was quite clear in the election. Then there was my utter favorite moment of the entire address. The orange man straight up calling Elizabeth Warren, the Democrat senator who lied about being a Native American, then done a DNA test and it showed she's only got 1/1000th native DNA in her, and actually had the audacity to claim that it was a win. Yes, Pocahontas. But why would he do that? Why be so mean to her? Well, that would be because she's one of those Democrats who's also a multi-millionaire from a life in public service who wants nothing more than to get even more Ukrainians killed on American taxpayer dollars by prolonging the war for 5 more years that she was cheering for. I have a great suggestion for the Native American multi-millionaire senator. If you want to prolong the war, then you better go fight alongside the Ukrainians you're trying to get killed. Off to the front line you go, dearie. Then there was the most truthful statement ever made in the history of statementing. The one where Trump says straight up that no matter what he says or does, even if it means the United States is in a better position and it serves its citizens, the Democrats will oppose every step of the way. Which they do. So there is no point in working with them. The mass meltdown at the Doge audits prove how much they don't want to work for the people. Kind of proving the point that they're all corrupt asshats possessed by cult ideology. But now we come to the moment of the night where the Democrats truly showed how petty they are. The moment the Orange Man honored a 13-year-old boy who survived childhood cancer, and as Trump gave him the honor of being an honorary agent of the United States of America, a gesture that was for everybody, the Democrats refused to clap for the kid or even acknowledge him. What an asshole moment from the people who hate their own country. Although we're all missing an absolute blinder here, because the headlines from every conservatory outlet right now should be racist Democrats refuse to applaud black child who survived cancer. Sometimes you've got to fight fire with fire. Am I right? But to make the moment even worsier, as the speech progressed to unify America, MSDNC diarrheaed out the worst take they have ever taken in the history of taking, by attacking the kid who survived brain cancer. Especially this utter creature who decided now would be the best time to say, "Oh, I'm really happy for him surviving cancer and all that, but he would have ended himself if he was a policeman at January the 6th. What a complete scumbag. And then none of the Democrats even acknowledged the families of all the victims who were straight up murdered through their open border policy. You're doing the Lord's work here, guys. I just didn't realize that Lord was Satan. Alright then, well that was fun. What happened next? Well, as Al Green was censured by Congress for being a disruptive little shit during the State of the Union, which basically means he's getting professionally told off, the Democrats, high on shit tons of cocaine, decided to begin singing that they will overcome this orange injustice. Overcome what? Losing? Your entire voter base is getting deported, and no one believes your shit anymore. But the worst is still yet to come. Yes, as the Democrats' power fades away and their governmental money laundering operation is dismantled by an African American with a team of autists, that for some reason they're totally dead set against, which is basically tanning on themselves, they decided they would go nuclear by offering their voter base the chance to choose their fighters like some kind of retarded Mortal Kombat game. My god, I have never seen such strength, such integrity, such winning. Yeah, definitely not the most cringe shit in the history of cringing. But outside of the US government acting like children, the Trump wave claimed yet another DEI victim. Target, the store that was selling chest binders to children and gay black disabled Santas and LGTV nutcrackers for Christmas. So obviously that was really bad and needed a protest organized. Fine, sure, that's really gonna be Target destroyed forever now, eh? Oh, would somebody please think of the retail outlet? And just as we come to the close of this week in Clown World that we thought was enough for 1 week, news has broken that, to be honest, just blew up the best thing in the Soviet Kingdom. Reform UK have kicked out their only MP with an actual spine, and a lot of people are calling bullshit on the reasons, including myself. Well done, you utter mongs, but more on that next week. Big shout out to all my Patreon boys and guys. Every night I dream of us walking hand in hand on a beach while committing grotesque hate crimes. Love you all very much, Lee.
Subscribe button.
Is always right.